Oh my goodness. I just realized the time. I'm literally trying to fix my hair and here goes 12:15. Anyway, guys, welcome back to The Balanced Woman. And I first want to start off, let me first ask, how's everyone's day thus far? I want to start off by saying thank you to all of those who tune in on the replay and most importantly, give me your feedback. I really appreciate that. Because as you know, this is something I'm doing that I'm supposed to have done years ago, and I'm finally putting my foot to the floor and getting it done. Oh my goodness, hello madam, how are you? So I thank you for the feedback that you're giving me. The other thing I want to say is that, you know, this is never a one-man show. I'm all about team. And if there's ever anything that you feel like you want me to share, send me whether it be a DM, direct message, or an email, or my contact information, telephone. You can WhatsApp me the information. And I'll gladly share it via live or respond directly to you. So today, what I want to share is something that many of us are waiting for, and that is, why do most relationships fail? Why are there so many relationships failing? I want you to think of that. Hi, my lovely. Look at my mentee. Hi, Chanel. Why are most relationships failing? Take 2 seconds to think about that. Why are they failing? The result is we're splitting up, or we're remaining together for the sake of the various reasons why people stay together. And I'll share with you, while there are so many factors surrounding why relationships fail, one being the lack of communication, which is key in every relationship. That's very big, being able to communicate your wants, needs, and desires in your relationship, right? And that's also communicating your thoughts, your feelings, and every attribute that goes along with that. Many of us aren't able to do it in our relationships, right? And so that becomes a contributing factor as to the breakdown in our relationships, not being able to communicate the way in which it's going to get us to the next stage in our relationship. So there are many reasons why people don't communicate or avoid effectively communicating. And there are many reasons, because there are reasons around guilt, right? For whatever it is that partner's doing or not, right? So they don't want to talk about the various things. So they opt out of communicating with you, leaving most people in those situations to try and figure it out themselves. So you become a one-man show, which is not fair. So communication, lack of communication in relationships, right? And then there is the loss of emotional connection. Now, any of us know that when we have challenges, hi Chanel, when we have challenges, hey Painter, what's happening? When we have challenges in relationships, right, and our needs aren't being met, it automatically causes a disconnect in our emotions. Thus, why the level of intimacy drops in many relationships, right? And so we know if there's no intimacy, it usually means there's no trust. Right? It causes us to have mistrust in relationships. It just causes us to isolate ourselves. And so I find that a lot of clients usually will say, Tina, you know, male and female, Tina, you know, our emotional connection is zilch, nothing. And that led from not being able to communicate how they really felt about the various situations that went on or go on in relationships, right? And a lot of people will say, well, they had an affair. Okay, right? That's not something that we can work through, right? And everybody thinks that's a deal breaker. It's not. It only becomes a deal breaker when we're unable to effectively communicate exactly how we feel about it. And that's both partners, right? And then some people will say, well, financially, they're not adding up. You know, I'm bringing in $10 and they're only bringing in $150 every now and again. So that's not working. So there are various things, their children, their family, so many substances, their mates, their ace girls, shopping, so many things cause us to have a breakdown in our relationships as it relates to communication. Why did she have to, or why did he have to lie that he spent $1,000 on that little iPod? You know, the littlest things that we encounter sometimes we don't feel. And then we say, well, why didn't they communicate that with us? So now what that does is causes a level of resentment, right? And everything else that goes with the lack of communication. So it's not just the big things of he had an affair, or he had a child, or he lost his job and he didn't say. But it's right down to why did he buy, or why did she buy that lipstick for $25 and say she doesn't have any money? Just the littlest things could cause us to have a breakdown in our communication. And most times why we don't communicate, one, we probably don't feel heard, right? Two, we could be hiding something. I know for me, if I was to come in with, I wouldn't say lipstick, but if I was to come in with something for my house, and I said to my husband, I'm not shopping, I'm not buying anything else for this house, I'm more than likely gonna come in when it's not her one, and put it in position. And by the time he recognizes it, I say, oh my goodness, that's been there, right? Now, if my husband and I had a poor communication, that would be a real deal breaker. But he knows me to do it, and he'll look and see it. So, hey, there it is. But it's the slightest things like that sometimes. When you don't have an overall communication, effective communication in your relationship, the slightest thing creates a breakdown. So as it relates to the communication and the loss of emotional connection, if we don't have emotional connection, what do we have, right? And everything's not sex, right? So if we aren't able to come in and feel sad, and our partner recognize that we feel sad and might not be able to fix everything about it, but just acknowledge that they see that we feel a certain way, that causes a breakdown, right? It also causes us to isolate. Hi, Mom. What I'm going to do with this lady. It also further creates a space that causes us to isolate ourselves, right? And so much so sometimes we're living like roommates. You feel like you're in a room with a roommate. You don't feel like, hey, wait a minute, this is that person that I could intimately connect with. It's more so, hey, what's happening? How you doing today? You paid the bills? You gonna fix the car because you know the car needs to be fixed. Oh, we need groceries. You got groceries? The plumbing needs to be fixed. The lever's broken. That's what it leads to. It just leads to a breakdown of every connection, right? And ultimately, the dissatisfaction grows so great that it causes you to say, this is not working. And what I'm finding now is that a lot of people aren't physically walking away from the relationships. They're staying in these relationships and operating as though they are already divorced or already broken up. He and she, and sometimes one or the other, have partners on the outside and they're functioning as though they're single. What sense is that, right? But people do it for various reasons. And why? Why do that to yourself, right? Those are some of the things that's why I do what I do. Because what you want to live full, you're full into your fullness. Who can I be in this relationship? Leaving out who you can be by yourself as an individual. Who are you, right? You want to show up full. Right? So when you do have a little breakdown in your relationships, you don't feel as depleted. And it's like my whole world's ending because I have nothing. He or she is my everything, right? And sometimes people's attached to a title, right? I could be going off of it. Just keep with me. Sometimes people's attached to a title, right? So because your husband or wife have a specific title in the community, that's what you become attached to. You are known as the wife of, or the husband of, or the pair that, or the couple that. You get what I mean? So it's not always good. Would you say that communication is a big factor in divorce? Absolutely. It is. You know what? Communication is a big factor in divorce. And the reason being is because you lose every part of the intimacy between each other. If you can't express how you feel, your wants, needs, and desires, you're just leading off of, what do I want to do? Because who I'm with doesn't care about how I feel. And it's not always that they don't care. They don't even know how you feel. And sometimes they don't know how to give you what you want and need and desire. But that's also a level of communication, right? How do we talk about this? And sometimes, to be really, really honest, there are so many relationships out there that people are just together and they're not functioning as a couple. In the public eye, they are, but behind closed doors, they're just about grunting at each other. They haven't touched each other for ages. And sometimes that's all they can do is touch you. There's no other connection but the as he acts. And that's fulfilling something else in both of you, but the emotional tie is not there, right? And then lastly, what ties all of this in is one of the greatest challenges that causes relationships to fail is unresolved conflict. Let me say it again. If your relationship's failing, more than likely it has everything to do with unresolved conflict. So remember I mentioned communication. If you aren't able to communicate effectively with your partner how you feel, your wants, needs, and desires, and ultimately walking in a corner, isolating yourself from even feeling like you should express yourself, that's bogged down. That's a whole pent up resentment. You're feeling like they don't care about me, so now you're resenting them for not being able to express yourself. Now let's talk about the intimacy. Not only do you want an intimate emotional connection, you also want a physical connection. Now when those needs aren't being met, that's another set of resentment, which ultimately leads to unresolved conflict. When you can't express yourself with somebody without them being defensive and not listening to you but telling you what they want to hear, that leaves you with resentment. When you can't get a response from somebody, so if you have a conversation with somebody and the intention is that when you have the conversation it doesn't happen again, well, if it happens over and over and over again, that becomes a problem. Now if either party aren't doing anything to address it, unresolved conflict, right? If you have a family member, friend, or somebody that you don't get along with, and every time, here we are coming upon Christmas, right? And a lot of people, I'm finding, have anxiety around this time of year, not only because they got to find money to dress up, go out and show face to everybody. Good day, how are you? Yes, we're lovely. As a couple with a partner that when they're home, they don't even talk, probably say about 2-3 words. They're also thinking about getting together with those families for during Christmas holiday, sitting with a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, mother-in-law, cousin, a niece, a child that partner does not get along with. And so what that does, creates, when nothing's done about it, unresolved conflict. And you know what's funny is not that people don't want to resolve it or don't care, because a lot of what my clients say is, Tina, nobody really cares. He don't care or she don't care how I feel because nothing changes. Well, how can you change something if you don't know how to change it, right? I've been on a journey of getting my weight back off since April, since I lost my brother, right? I've been saying, oh my goodness, I've gained 46.5 pounds as of this morning. And every week I say, oh my goodness, I gotta get something done about it. But you know what? Not only do I have to do more exercising and change more of my diet, but I also have to address the underlying feelings. What's causing me to think I have to be an emotional eater every time I think about something or missing my brother? You get me? So sometimes we don't address those challenges or those issues, so they aren't being addressed, so you have no new tools, right? And so part of why most relationships are all the clients I've worked with over the years are failing is because the entire gist of it all is they aren't resolving the conflict. They aren't resolving those things that are causing them to wreak havoc in this relationship. They aren't resolving, why do we always argue? What is that thing we're arguing about, right? Yeah? Why is it that this keeps happening and I keep telling you I don't like it? Why do you keep saying these things and it keeps hurting my feelings? Well, because they don't know how to, one. And sometimes people are very intentional of doing what they do, but most times it's because people don't know how to do it. So today I just want to share this with you. Think about all those things. Oh, think of all your relationships if you wanted to. And think of that one thing that caused so much disruption in your relationship. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of ultimately unresolved conflict, unresolved feelings, unresolved situations, unresolved hurt, unresolved trauma, unresolved, whether it's your current partner's trauma or your current partner's problem, is something unresolved, which leads to conflict. So today what I want you to think about is think about that main issue. What is really causing these challenges in the relationship? And I don't want you to do it from a perspective of pointing at your partner. What is it about me? And that's the hardest thing to do. Trust me, that's the hardest thing to do. I've had to do it, and I do it very often, because if I don't, I'll be in a lot of trouble. So with my husband. So we have to do personal assessments on ourselves quite often, right? And so that one thing that most people walk away from relationships and get divorced about is the unresolved conflict. So next week, I think what I'm going to do is I'm trying to be laid by the audiences, right? So when I get emails and questions, I'm trying to lead with them, right? Because I've been asked to answer these questions. But the other thing I want you to do is I want you to think about these things and how it really impacts you and what you can do differently, not your partner, what you can do differently. And for those of you who aren't married, right, and you're staying in these relationships, knowing, I often say, we know from the get-go if certain things in that relationship's going to trigger some things in us that's not going to work. I think we need to ask you the question today is, why do you continue to do that to yourself? With the intention of what? Having more unresolved conflict. Ultimately walking away from the relationship, or desiring to marry somebody for the sake of being married, and ultimately having unresolved conflict. And either living in a relationship that's you're divorced, or ultimately divorcing. Okay, guys? So how you doing? Thanks for joining. So what I want to share with you today is an idea to get you thinking about how you are showing up in your relationship and what you can do to better support you during this relationship. I often say relationships, yes, they take two, and for many it's 3, 4, and 5 now, but we'll talk about that on another conversation. But we have to be mindful of how we show up in these relationships. And we also have to know that, you know what? We cannot make other people see what we see unless they want to see it, right? And it's very unlikely you're going to get a buy-in when you're pointing the finger, right? So if you know that your relationship is struggling and you're challenged with a lot of issues, tons of issues, go back and listen to the beginning of this on the replay. Know that as long as it's not addressed, you're going to have unresolved conflict. And whether you're smiling for Christmas and around the family, you're going to have unresolved conflict January 2025. So, I'm here. I forgot to put that part in there. I'm here. Hit me up. And I can guarantee you one session with me will turn your whole situation around. One session. Okay, guys? So, thanks for joining The Balanced Woman. And please send me an email, a DM, drop a comment below for whatever it is you feel like you want, need, and desire from me via these lives. And I'll be sure to show up and give it to you. Have a great week. Talk soon.